Greetings, my friends, my fellow travelers. Mkwann here on Gregorian calendar date March the 6th, Gregorian calendar year 2024. And things are starting to really weave together tightly. And so this video is an update to the video that was just released entitled Triangulation in Harrisburg. I think that was the name of it. Anyway, without any further ado, let me just jump right into this. All right. So as a little recap, I did a video which I put out called the Synchro, Compass, and Triangulating Harrisburg. I describe how Christy and I had been house sitting since the beginning of this calendar year in the Harrisburg area. And it occurred to me that maybe I want to triangulate where we had been staying just to kind of see what we had been moving around. And when I did that, I saw that the center point, the triangulated center point of our various locations was almost a bullseye to a couple different key buildings and an obelisk, the Zembo Shrine Auditorium, the Scottish Rite Cathedral, and then this obelisk of Dauphin County. And in the presentation, I began by thinking that, you know, if there's something on the deeper level, which was kind of like driving this Harrisburg circulation, that perhaps it was energetically tied to the obelisk, this 110-foot obelisk made of Susquehanna River stone. Come here, girl. Pardon the squeak. I got a dog in the background. She's got a play toy. But as I went through that presentation, after leaving the Harrisburg area, I came across a book which dealt with Ben Ishmael and the Ishmaelites and their circulatory migratory pattern and the correlation with Ben Ishmaelite and the Moorish culture. I began to think that perhaps that there was something more significant about this Zembo Shrine building, which is tied to the Masonic organization, the Shriners, and the name Zembo actually meaning water spirit. So that's kind of where I want to pick up. So that was, I left the video with really just a bunch of, you know, information and questions, just pointing out like, wow, there's, you know, there's something going on here. So here's that video, the Synchro, Compass, and it was published on February 24th, so 7 days ago. And then on February 29th, articles started to come out saying that the Zembo Shrine has been recognized as a National Historic Place. And obviously the timing of that is certainly interesting, considering the video which I just put out. And I looked a little bit deeper into that story, and what it says is, I mean, the closest thing to a date, it says that the Zembo Shrine recently announced it is now on the National Register of Historical Places. There's no date tied to when the shrine was officially recognized. The only place I could find online that made reference to it came in these 4 articles, which we see right here. There's nothing on the Zembo Shrine website, though it doesn't look like it's actively managed. And these stories, this is a screenshot from Google, and unfortunately, it doesn't give dates for when these articles came out. It just says, like, this relative 3 days ago, 4 days ago. I think I did the screenshot like maybe 2 days ago. But regardless, the oldest one, which we see right here, 4 days, that article came out on the 29th. So regardless of when the Zembo Shrine was actually recognized, when that designation occurred, it was released publicly, coinciding right after this recognition, online, through this recognition of the Zembo Shrine in the video, which I was talking about. So I find that curious. I'm also, curious to the fact that this is all so web oriented. Like, there's nothing which I've seen physical about this recognition. And, I'm not suggesting that this is AI playing along, but I'm also saying I don't know what's going on. But that's just the first piece in what I want to share with you today. And they all kind of should be taken as different pieces of the same puzzle. And what they're pointing to is a very tight weaving together of this unfolding, the unfolding of life, particularly, with me as the character, because, I'm the storyteller. So anyway, this here's a map. This right here is the Harrisburg area. This is where the triangulation occurred. And I left Harrisburg and went to the River House, located in southern York County, right on the Susquehanna River. That's where this video is recorded, inside the River House. And then after a few nights there, began another house sitting gig in Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is a big city. This here kind of shows all of Philadelphia, and this red star is exactly where the house sitting assignment is, which I'm currently in the middle of. And you could see it's in the upper north of downtown Philadelphia, but still within the city limits and adjacent to the Wissahickon Valley Park. Here is here's a more detailed image of where we're staying. And for those of you who are familiar with Philadelphia, the area where we're staying is the Chestnut Hill neighborhood. And so part of the fun of going on these house sitting assignments is looking at the history of the places which we are seemingly randomly drawn to, and just seeing what we find out. And so there's a man in history, Henry Houston. He lived 1820 to 1895, and he was a leading Philadelphia businessman and philanthropist. I think I'm pronouncing that the correct way. He was a mover and a shaker. And he also was involved with the development of Wissahickon Heights, an exclusive community in western Chestnut Hill. In fact, this guy had a lot of influence on Chestnut Hill. So I showed you that this area right here is 10 miles, let's say, from downtown Philadelphia. And Houston, one of the things he did was he oversaw the building of the rail line, which connected this part of the outer Philadelphia suburbs to downtown, making it, very viable to live here and to access the downtown city. So it's very involved with the development and the building of Chestnut Hill area, particularly in the latter half of the 19th century. Chestnut Hill, I believe, has its origins back to colonial times, maybe 1730s, maybe even earlier than that. Anyway, So the point here is Henry Houston was born in Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, and during his childhood grew up in Columbia, Pennsylvania. So those of you who are familiar with the Susquehanna mystery know that Wrightsville and Columbia are key locations. I talk about them quite frequently. Here's Columbia, here's Wrightsville. They're opposite one another on opposite banks of the Susquehanna River, Lancaster County and York County. But even more specifically of interest is this area right here, just south of Wrightsville, or the borough limits of Wrightsville, but still within a Wrightsville mailing address, is High Point Scenic Vista. We see High Point Scenic Vista here. This is the same map, but just shown in satellite form. We see this is High Point. This is the Susquehanna River. Columbia and Wrightsville are just above this image, and one of the reasons why this location is so interesting is this marker here corresponds to this detail. High Point Scenic Vista, its street address is 1199 Hilt Road, Wrightsville, Pennsylvania, and its latitude, longitude coordinates are the latitude is 40.001641. I mean, this is the reason why High Point is so significant, is because High Point is located exactly at the 40th parallel and the Susquehanna River. This is, maybe 1,000 feet from the river to where High Point is. And I've talked about it many times over the years. This is what High Point Scenic Vista looks like. When we zoom in to right here, it's got this crescent moon and sun symbol upon it. It's built that way. And this is the location which is embedded, encrypted in the John Smith map of Virginia. So this is that location. So the fact that Chestnut Hill, and particularly one of Chestnut Hill's most significant residents hails from Wrightsville, Columbia, is, that certainly piques my attention. And then when we start to get into, the more weirdness, I talk about the significance of High Point being on the map and how it was built and the time of when it's built and its relationship with the Susquehannocks. I'm not really certain how deep this location goes because, like we're all trying to kind of figure out this mystery of experience. Like, one of the ideas which I'm at least open to is the idea of this being some type of interdimensional portal, whatever that may mean. And this idea has been also complemented in the past through mainstream media. Most obviously, or the strongest example would be from the TV show, the Disney TV show called Loki. I don't know if they're still making episodes of it, but I think it came out in 2021. So here's an article that says, "Did you catch the reference to Lancaster County and Marvel Studios' Loki?" And this is from that article. In the 4th episode, the Nexus event, a computer screen shows a reference to Wrightsville, PA. Wrightsville, PA, right here, where Henry Houston is from, with the date January 6th, 1832, which was, probably a time in which Henry Houston was actually living there. I'm not necessarily suggesting that it's saying that, linking the two, but I'm just saying, there's certainly an overlap. The context of the scene is that the Time Variance Authority are searching different timelines to locate the show's title character who has escaped to a different world's timeline. So the whole idea of this show Loki has to do with, the nature of reality, multiple timelines, and the potentiality of people who are able to move from timelines to timeline. And in the show, there is this organization called the Time Variance Authority, which kind of oversees the order of timeline management and, whatever that would be. A very similar concept of the Adjustment Bureau organization as described or depicted in Philip K. Dick's The Adjustment Bureau, which also was the inspiration for a movie of the same name. And it's also, vaguely, roughly similar to the Men in Black organization as seen in the Men in Black franchise, asterisk to that, that movie franchise originated with Will Smith, who is, tied to Philadelphia. So the point I'm just trying to make here is like Wrightsville has, on a certain level, some sort of connection with like timelines and timeline manipulation. And, one of the things which, when I say like things are being woven together, a theme which has been addressed many times in this the Susquehanna alchemy journey has been the idea of collapsing false timelines. And that is a very general nebulous term or description. And, how it seems to be showing itself are like tighter and tighter synchronicities and pointing to more and more specific places. So now we have a link between the 40th parallel in the Susquehanna River and Chestnut Hill, where, I'm finding myself just moving after this whole sort of triangulation that occurred on the Susquehanna River in Harrisburg. And if we're going to be open to this idea of, time travel and portal locations, I don't know. I'm just, I'm using that as a general term because I can't say for certain this is how the world works, but it certainly seems like it. And then secondly, how that would work. So I'm just going to use somehow like place seems to be key. Philadelphia has a long history of of time travel, going into the whole sort of Philadelphia experiment, which is a well-known story in our conspiratorial mythology of the United States. The Philadelphia experiment obviously takes place in Philadelphia, and the true purpose of which is time travel. And then so we go and we look a little bit, also complementary to this idea of Philadelphia being time travel oriented and the role of mainstream media. And we look at the movie 12 Monkeys, because 12 Monkeys is a time travel plot and it takes place in Philadelphia. I did a video of, this had to have been like 3 or 4 years ago. And I went deep in that video, showing all of these correlations between the movies 12 Monkeys, The Sixth Sense, and Fight Club, because we have similar actors. They all take place in Philadelphia, Wilmington, Delaware area, and they were oddly linked. I don't really recall the details of it, but that theme is coming back up. And, anyone who's kind of interested in where I'm talking about, what I'm talking about right now, specifically like the movies and 12 Monkeys, I would encourage you to go and look back somewhere in the YouTube archive and rewatch that video. But also, funny, ironic about the movie 12 Monkeys is, yes, it was a Bruce Willis film, but also Brad Pitt stars in the film. And this is an image of what his character looked like in the 12 Monkeys time travel film. And if I'm being transparent, there's obviously a certain sort of general archetypical similarity between me and Brad Pitt, or his character. Unfortunately, in this film, they portray this character of being delusional and highly unstable. I hope that is not a reflection of yours truly, but, nonetheless, I got to go there because the evidence is presenting it. So, okay, let's continue on down our journey. So this Chestnut Hill having a correspondence to the 40th parallel in the Susquehanna River, that's the second kind of interesting noteworthy detail which I'm bringing awareness to in this video. So the next thing I want to say is, I'm in Philadelphia, right? And so if you're familiar with my work and with other similar type of work, you probably know that Philadelphia is home of our good friend Ross Ben. And sure enough, me and Ross, we met up. We met up in the Wissahickon Creek Park on March the 3rd, just 3 days ago. This is a picture from that. And keep in mind that this house sit, this was not something which me and Christy were purposely saying we want to be in Philadelphia at this particular time. It seemingly unfolded in a very organic and/or random way. So we moved into this house. We arrived at this house on March 1st. Me and Ross, we meet up on March 3rd. So looking back at the record which Instagram is able to provide, I've screenshot this image which I posted on Instagram a while ago, and it says, Ross, Ben, and I met yesterday in Philadelphia to record footage for the next episode of From the 40th Parallel to be released soon. And I made this post on March 3rd, 2023. So calendar-wise, exactly, I made the post on this, the same date 1 year later. I arrived in Chestnut Hill exactly one solar cycle, a completion of solar cycle from when Ross and I met the previous year. And so we've got this 1-2 punch again with the unfolding of time, which in a general sense kind of mirrors this Zembo Shrine statement, where the release of the Zembo Shrine being placed upon the National Historic Register coincides with me just talking about it. And so now we have this sort of alignment again with the unfolding of time. But that's just the beginning of it. So the video, I said that we captured footage, and then that footage was used to create an episode of From the 40th Parallel, a program me and Ross used to do together. And so here is a screenshot from that video. This is on Ross Ben's channel. And it says, From the 40th Parallel, episode 20, Philly's 9-mile road to hell. And here you can see it's Ross and me, and you can see we're wearing the same thing as we're wearing right here. And in the context of this video, we're talking about this marker right here. And this marker says the 40th parallel. And so we came here. And this marker ties in very deeply into the revealing of Ross's research of Philly's 9-mile road to hell and how told through public artworks and other public accessible artifices. Is that a word? Parks and fountains and public art, that there was this story of the I mean, if you're familiar with Ross's work, you probably know what I'm talking about, and you know that I can't really summarize it in a sentence. But anyway, we're at this location because it is a key point in the research which Ross was doing. And so here's another screenshot from that same video, and here we see Ross's map where he goes and he pinpoints this 9-mile road to hell, starting from here, ending right here. And we could see where the blue dot is we're at the 40th parallel marker, and it's right next to Pistorius Park. This yellow dot right here is Pistorius Park. So as you can imagine, both of these are located in Chestnut Hill. So this is where me and Christy, are house sitting when we arrived on March 1st, 2024, right here. This is Pistorius Park, and this red star right here is this location, this 40th parallel marker. This is where we met with Ross on 3/2/23. This is less than half a mile from each other. So again, we're seeing this tightening up. We're seeing this tightening up of this unfoldment of time. And this picture, which I showed you of me and Ross right here, this was taken right here at this statue in the Wissahickon Creek. Like, we're all in the same area. Like, we returned without like a specific plan on almost 1 year to the day. So that's kind of the third element in this tale, which I'm sharing with you. So the final one has to do with the starboard and natural astrology. And it is my opinion that what I am demonstrating in these videos in general, in this video specifically, and what I'm attempting to demonstrate is a tightening of the weave. And what I mean by that is, as I step further and further away from Gregorian time or false time and become more and more aligned with what I'm referring to as real time or natural astrology, that false timelines, all of the busyness of life in the paradigm is beginning to fall away, and the interwovenness and interconnectedness of life becomes even more evident. And so the practice of natural astrology, what I'm demonstrating here and articulating, is the byproduct of what happens when one consciously moves away from false time. This is one of the reasons I begin all of these videos by stating clearly that this is Gregorian calendar date such and such. I'm being immensely clear that I'm recognizing that, one, I'm just recording it at the present moment, but two, the system which we use to mark the present moment is just a measuring system, and is not intrinsically real, and that we can recognize the difference between real time and false time. And something happens with the nature of reality when we begin to bring this level of consciousness to the unfoldment of time. So anyway, let me go into this, because this one, for me personally, was probably the most significant. So within the starboard natural astrology practice is this book, this great big book. It's probably like 30 inches by 14 inches. And in this book, it's called the Starboard. Each page is labeled as the Starboard Lunar Ephemeris. And in it, I write down the location of all the planetary bodies, where they are relative to the lunar cycle. So 4 different places in every lunar cycle where all the planets are on the new moon, the first quarter, the full moon, and the last quarter. And I break it up into lunations or full cycles. So in one page, there are 8 lunations. And part of my approach or practice of this natural astrology is recognizing that each one of these pages refers to a block of time in the unfoldment of at least my life experience. So, okay, let me go put this down here. This is a zoom-in version of the very top of this page. And on this page, I state the calendar date of what these lunations cover, and it's from July 17th, 2023 to March 3rd, 2024. Or said another way, that this page completed, this final row is dated March the 3rd. So the completion of this period ended here in Chestnut Hill as I'm witnessing all of these other things lining up, specifically being that Zembo shrine sort of sync wink, the correlation of being in Chestnut Hill with the 40th parallel in the Susquehanna River, and then also the alignment with me and Ross Ben. So I know that this time period ended here. The next chapter begins on the next full or new moon. And on the flip side, this time period began on July 17th, 2023. As you can see, this is the very top of the page. This is the first entry, and it began on July the 17th. That's when the new moon was. And so I can look back and see where I was at that time period. And so this is a screenshot from my phone, and on July 15th, 2023, Christy and I were in the middle of our cross-country road trip, and we were staying in Monument Valley, Utah. We were in this Airbnb teepee. And so we looked at that. All right, where are we going? This is where I'm going. Okay. So to go back, I made a video. I talked about it considerably upon the completion of that 33-day journey, which was the predecessor for of this season's aero circulation journey. But last year was kind of like the practice run of it, if you will, and there was a really big synchromistic piece for me about when we were in Monument Valley, and it tied into like the name mkwann, meaning feather, and Forrest Gump, and all sorts of like weird stuff. Perhaps you remember that story. I talked about it a lot. And that time period, when that began, was the beginning of this chapter, if you will, in the unfolding of life, at least in, as defined by the Starboard book. And this chapter then just ended, if you will, with the arrival at Chestnut Hill and the meeting with Ross Ben. So, okay. So here we are, Monument Valley, and Monument Valley is considered sacred by the Navajo Nation. Okay. This is where we stayed. This is, if you haven't been there, it's breathtaking. If you're familiar with the video, I talked about the key scene in Forrest Gump and the Navajo, and Monument Valley and so forth. But the reason I'm bringing it up right now is because of this conclusion date, this March 3rd, and we find ourselves right here in Chestnut Hill, this strange sort of connection to what may or may not be timeline portal access points of the 40th parallel in the Susquehanna River. And we find ourselves here, and this is the street which we're on. This is Pastorius Park. This is where we met with Ross Ben, and this is where the house is. It's on Navajo Street. So we began this chapter literally in the sacred center of the Navajo Nation, and then we find ourselves in Chestnut Hill, the sacred location of the Lenape, literally on a street called Navajo Nation, or called Navajo Street. And then even more significant is this is a picture taken inside of the house. You can see the starboard is right here. We set it up. And hanging on the wall right here, here's a better picture, is an authentic Navajo rug and Navajo pottery. So there is both in name and then in artifact, there is a feedback loop completion to Navajo, whatever that may mean, whatever the Ishmaelites may mean, whatever the triangulation around the Zembo shrine may mean, there is an undeniable connection between time and space. So that brings me to the conclusion of this video. In my personal life, in mine and Christy's personal life, we are gearing up for the Aero Circulation Cosmic Geomancy Ceremony tour dates, the River and Stars tour, which is taking place in the spring and this summer. And this is this event is connected deeply to what we're experiencing now, and there is a tightening. There's a tightening of the weave, and I say that because it is so self-evident that everything is lining up. And so this is where we're going with it. We talked about in the video that came out. It was a long video, and I really encourage anyone who is being magnetized by the story which I'm telling right now. If you haven't seen that video, go and look and see what the River and Stars ceremony is about. Look at what this is, what the purpose behind what we're doing is. Because this isn't just me and Christy. We're doing this with other human beings. This is an invitation to join us and to support us in this River and Stars tour. It kicks off on April 8th in Sunbury, Pennsylvania. Sunbury, Pennsylvania is right here on the Susquehanna River, the major confluence. If you're familiar with the Susquehanna mystery as the oldest river on the planet and the altar which was used to alter the trajectory of life on Earth, Sunbury plays a key role. It is where Edison's first 3-wire electrical distribution system was put into play, the first place anywhere on Earth. And it took place where these 3 wires of rivers, they meet. And so Sunbury, to bury a sun is the eclipse. And so we find ourselves there. Cultures that are closer to the natural unfolding or to just life, like baseline reality life, the natural world, cultures different than our paradigm, which we find ourselves in. Eclipses are ominous events. The culture would not go outside and celebrate it. If anything, they would probably be inside and maybe meet it in a different way. Whether you see that as superstition or not, I don't know. But it is certainly a very, very different approach than the festival nature which the Great American Eclipse is being marketed to the American people. And so I want to be clear when I talk about this River and Stars event, which begins on the solar eclipse at Sunbury, Pennsylvania. Like, this isn't so much of a celebration as much as it is a reclaiming and a recognition of a certain timeline. This eclipse, which is going to occur on the 8th, is occurring in conjunction with Chiron, with the asteroid Chiron, which in astrological terms is tied into both like wounding, but then also healing. And so this eclipse at least symbolically recognize, it represents, the X represents like maybe a reckoning and a healing or a karmic completion to North America with for possibly like the world which was created here, this recent world, this recent paradigm. And so that certainly fits like potentially like seeing things from an ominous perspective. But I'm suggesting that because that X corresponds with a key event that took place in 1987 at that same location of the X at Cuyahoga, at the mound site, because the harmonic convergence was grounded by humanity in a way which was tied to a celestial event and grounded in the earth for the purpose of harmony, that despite this being an ominous event, it's also an opportunity for a return or a healing or a karmic completion. Like the words which I'm using aren't exactly what this is. I mean, this is grander than our words. All we can do is see the signs around us and kind of ascertain what we're working with. And so at the River and Stars, we'll be bringing the starboard. There will be river water weaving. It's a full day event. So again, this video is completing with a invitation. I'm inviting anyone who's watching this, who's capable of participating in this event with us, to come out. And for those who can't, have some degree of participation, financial support, sharing these videos, what have you, like with sharing it with other people who would be able to attend this or who would be interested. That is the purpose here. You can find out more information always by emailing me. There's a GoFundMe page. Anyone who contributes, this isn't like a ticketed item, but how you have access to the information, like you participate through the financial support in doing this, and we give you all of the information. Likewise, the information such as the time, the meeting place, and so forth. And then also there will be information about the overall River and Stars ceremony, the River and Stars tour, which is taking place. We're still doing a lot of planning right now, getting all of our ducks in the row, but we have the dates and the general locations already in place. So that's it, my friends. I hope to see and hear from you guys, and yeah, it's becoming more and more real with each passing moment.